I watched the new Fallout TV series recently, and I've been obsessed with a particular question since then. Is it any good? If one were to read the reviews from mainstream critics, you'd be forgiven for thinking the show is excellent, a triumph of modern filmmaking and video game adaptations at their best. Equally so, the audience scores also seem to rate highly, with positive testimony from new and existing fans alike. With such an outpouring of support, you can understand my confusion when, long after finishing the show, I still found myself pondering whether or not I'd actually enjoyed it. I remember feeling this way after seeing The Last Jedi, and asking myself the same question, was it any good? The critics seem to think so. It's crazy to think about it now, but that film came out to universal critical acclaim. I could spend a long time talking about Star Wars, but it frankly doesn't interest me as much as it used to anymore. It hurts to say that. A lot has been said about The Last Jedi in particular as well, and I don't really have anything insightful to add to its criticism. All I will say is this. If you strip back all of the Star Wars-y elements to the film so you're left with its bare-bones structure, you're left with a story that is just not very good. The conclusion that I came to was that the film used the name Star Wars to give itself acclaim. The way I summarized it back then was like this. They needed to make a film that was worthy of the name Star Wars, and instead used the name Star Wars to make itself worthy. They had it the wrong way round. It could well have been a strategy on the studio's part, but I doubt it. Even in a studio as poorly performing as Disney these days, it's difficult for me to believe that its cast and crew deliberately did not set out to make the best film that they could. They failed, but it's easier for me to believe that than it is that they strove for inadequacy and relied on the brand to do the heavy lifting. Fallout relies on its brand heavily. It's packed full of props, names, sound effects, musical cues, and needle drops to lock Fallout fans into the world. Remember, this is Fallout. To a degree it works, but the problem with this approach to immersion is that it really only works once. You might have to watch it a couple times to see all of the references and member berries, but once you know that they are there, and that they don't contribute to the story beyond them just being there, the magic is lost. The impact of this is that the show gets worse with every viewing. Each pass, it has less and less to offer the viewer. Great films get better with every viewing. Poor films get worse. Once the honeymoon period is over, and the albeit thick veneer is washed away, there really is little else about Fallout. What else are we looking for here? A captivating plot, interesting and thoughtful through lines and story arcs, themes that engross the viewer and get them thinking, characters that are believable and can be related to, and generally react when they lose a finger or their toes. In these respects, the show left me wanting. I found such little emotion in this story. For me, the most emotional part was hearing the Fallout leitmotif when Lucy unfurled an NCR flag, a pang that will no doubt not hit quite so hard the second or third time around. One of the themes the show leaves you with is that apparently the true antagonist of the story was, of all the wasteland creatures, capitalism. Good stories are meant to leave you with many genuine questions to ponder over, but after finishing this series, one of the questions I was left with was, what on earth do they mean by that? I know I said I didn't want to talk about Star Wars, but the original trilogy really is an exceptional example of what it is I'm trying to describe. You could take that story from all three films and transplant it into any other setting. And with minimal rejigging, the story would remain captivating. The world and setting, as George Lucas designed it, provides strength and iconicism to the story, but it's all built upon the strong foundation of a good fairy tale. The Last of Us is similar in this way. From a high level, the story is straightforward. A reluctant father is made to escort a child to her destiny, forms a close bond to her over time, and then commits an atrocity to save her life. It's almost biblical. However, The Last of Us doesn't go quite so far towards world building. It is there, and it is interesting, but it's secondary. I don't think anyone could make the case that it is one of the most important aspects of the story. I believe the strength of The Last of Us is in the elegance of its story, not the world in which it is set. I suppose what I was hoping to find in Fallout was simple, elegant storytelling that was improved by its world, not carried by it. I'm worried that what we got was a novelty. A chance to jump and shout whenever we saw a Fallout food product on screen, the story second to the world, an afterthought. It's rife with ex machina, contrivance, poorly defined character motivations. By the end of the show, you're working hard to tie up the loose plot threads yourself, trying to work out if you missed something that would make it all make sense. Part of me thinks the writers are intentionally relying on a second season to give season 1 proper closure, which is another practice of modern filmmaking that I'm critical of. The dialogue holds up, and the direction seems fine, with a few embarrassing exceptions, but control of the story seems to have been lost after episode 1. If I was feeling exceptionally uncharitable, I might say it was lost the moment that Moldaver was introduced. I should wrap this up. Is Fallout actually good? I'm sorry, but I don't believe that it is. I had a lot of fun watching it, that's true. That, though, was likely because I watched it with my friends, most of us being Fallout fans to begin with. With friends like those, we could watch paint dry and have a good time. Talking about it with them afterwards, though, it was clear that what we really felt about the show was an incredible despondency. We all seemed to have ideas for how the show could have gone better. There was apparently very little about the show that we wanted to go back and witness again. For us, the highlights were, and this is to their credit, the brief scene with Matt Berry, as well as every scene with Norm and Thaddeus. We didn't see that one coming. We also enjoyed a collective groan whenever we heard the ghouls' classic and iconic yodeling. Despite all this, and despite the show's clear merits, on my second viewing, I found myself having a much worse time. I'm likely not going to watch it again, which is a shame. I'm the type of viewer who repeat binges constantly. I've watched season 1 of Arcane 5 times now, and I must have watched Daredevil front to back at least that many times as well. Fallout has my attention. I'll give season 2 the time of day, but I can't go in with high expectations. It will have to prove to me that it deserves to keep my attention. I do hope this doesn't come across as a disingenuous review. I hope it doesn't come across as much of a review at all. It'll take much more time than this to properly give the story its dues, and there are much more capable critics than I who could offer insightful commentary. I do hope that people can come around to the idea that such criticism really only comes from a place of love. I've seen some people suggest that criticism from hardcore Fallout fans is founded in jealousy for the show's success, or that their point of view was somehow predetermined, or that they're somehow incapable of allowing themselves to enjoy it. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me. There are some rifts among Fallout fans, particularly related to Bethesda's writing, but it doesn't seem obvious to me that a well-written, entertaining show couldn't have been received well by the fanbase in its totality. After all, that is my main problem with it, I think. It isn't well written, and its entertainment doesn't extend much further than its first viewing. Stories set in the world of Fallout deserve to last, but I'm worried the idea of a Fallout TV show will go the way of The Last Jedi. Critical acclaim, followed by eternal ambivalence.